The ancient crystal spires of Zephyr 7 gleamed like frozen starlight against the purple sky, their surfaces reflecting the gentle radiance of 3 distant suns. For over 10,000 years, these magnificent structures had stood as monuments to peace, housing a civilization that had never known war, never experienced hatred, and never needed to raise weapons against another living being. Elder Counselor Vinka pressed his translucent palm against the observation chamber's viewing crystal, watching the last evacuation ships struggle to escape the dying world below. His ethereal form, typical of the Zephyrian species, shimmered with barely contained anguish as another transport vessel disappeared in a burst of dark energy. "How many more?" he asked, his voice carrying the musical quality that made speech sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Science Minister Thurles consulted his bioorganic interface, the living technology pulsing with distressed amber light. 17,000 souls remain on the surface. Elder, the shelters in the deep caverns might protect them for another cycle, but after that, ... His words trailed off into the silence that had become too familiar in recent days. The enemy had no name that Zephyrian vocal cords could pronounce. They called them the Void Swarm, a collective consciousness of mechanical horrors that consumed entire star systems, leaving nothing but empty space in their wake. They had appeared at the edge of Zephyrian territory 6 cycles ago, a dark cloud that blotted out stars and devoured worlds. The Zephyrians had tried everything their peaceful nature could conceive. They offered trade, shared their knowledge, even attempted to communicate with the swarm's hive mind. The response had been swift and merciless, complete annihilation of the outer colonies. Then a methodical advance toward the homeworld. "Elder," Thurles said, his form flickering with nervous energy, "there is one option we have not considered." Vinka turned from the viewing crystal, his ancient eyes reflecting wisdom accumulated over 3 centuries of life. "Speak, old friend. The archive of forgotten protocols." Thurles gestured toward the deepest levels of the spire. "In the earliest records, from the time when our ancestors first reached the stars, there are references to an emergency beacon, a call for aid that reaches beyond the known galaxy to sectors marked as forbidden." The Elder's form solidified slightly, a sign of deep concentration. "The quarantine zones. Thurles, you know the stories. Those regions were sealed for good reason. What dwells there may be worse than the swarm itself." Another explosion lit up the sky as a void swarm harvester broke through the planetary defense grid. The massive biomechanical construct, easily the size of a city, began extending its feeding tendrils toward the surface. Where they touched, the very ground turned to ash and was absorbed into the creature's bulk. "Perhaps," Thurles replied, watching the horror unfold, "but what choice remains? Our weapons barely scratch their hulls. Our shields collapse under their attacks. In 2 cycles, there would be no Zephyr 7, no Zephyrian civilization, no trace that we ever existed." Vinka closed his ancient eyes and reached out with his consciousness. Touching the minds of every Zephyrian still alive, he felt their fear, their hope, their desperate desire to see another dawn. When he opened his eyes again, they burned with determination. "Show me this beacon." The archive of forgotten protocols lay buried beneath kilometers of living crystal, in chambers that had not been disturbed for millennia. The walls themselves seemed to pulse with ancient memory as the 2 Zephyrians descended through bioluminescent corridors that responded to their presence. "Here," Thurles whispered, his form barely visible in the deep blue glow of the archive chamber. Before them stood a construct unlike anything in modern Zephyrian technology, angular, metallic, clearly designed by minds very different from their own. This was built by our ancestors, Vinka asked, running his fingers over symbols that seemed to shift and change as he watched. No, Elder. This was built by the Old Alliance, the coalition of species that ruled the galaxy before the Great Silence. Our ancestors were merely the caretakers, chosen to guard it should the day ever come when it was needed. The device hummed to life at Thurl's touch, its alien interfaces somehow responding to Zephyrian biology. Holographic displays filled the air around them, showing star charts and communication protocols written in languages that predated their civilization. The reach is truly galactic, Thurls breathed, studying the displays. It can send our message to every inhabited system, every monitoring station, every world capable of space travel, including... He paused, his form flickering with uncertainty. Including the quarantine zones, Vinka finished. Do it. Send our cry to whoever might listen, wherever they might be. As Thurls began inputting their location and situation, the Elder composed their message. He thought of the children in the deep shelters, of the art and music and poetry that would die with their world, of 10,000 years of peace that was about to end in darkness. To any who received this transmission, he began, his words being encoded into the ancient beacon. We are the Zephyrians of the Zephyr 7 system. We are a peaceful people who have never raised weapons in anger, never conquered other worlds, never sought anything but knowledge and harmony. Now we face extinction at the hands of the Void Swarm, and we have no weapons that can stop them. We do not ask for conquest or revenge, only for the chance to survive, to preserve our culture and our people. If there is any compassion left in the galaxy, please help us. The beacon charged with power that made the very air shimmer. Ancient technology awakened, drawing energy from the planet's core itself. With a sound like reality tearing, the message launched into space, racing across the galaxy at speeds that defied physics. On the surface, the Void Swarm continued its methodical destruction, unaware that their prey had just sent a call for help. To the most dangerous region of space, in a system marked only as Sol 3 in the oldest star charts, a deep space monitoring station received the transmission. Commander Sarah Chen had been drinking coffee and reviewing supply reports when every alarm in the facility began screaming at once. Ma'am, Technician Rodriguez called from his station. We're receiving an emergency beacon from Sector 47 Gamma. It's using old Alliance protocols. Chen nearly dropped her coffee. In her 15 years of monitoring the quarantine perimeter, they had received exactly 0 transmissions using those codes. Put it through. The message filled the command center with its desperate plea. Chen listened to the musical voice describing a peaceful civilization facing annihilation, and something cold settled in her stomach. She had read the reports from the outer rim. The Void Swarm was real, and it was spreading. Rodriguez, get me Admiral Stone at Fleet Command. Priority Alpha. Ma'am, it's 0300 hours Earth time. The Admiral won't be happy about being woken up. Chen looked at the tactical display showing the Zephyrian system, at the massive energy signatures that could only be enemy warships. Rodriguez, if this is what I think it is, the Admiral's sleep schedule is about to become the least of anyone's concerns. Within an hour, Admiral Marcus Stone was standing in the command center, his weathered face grim as he reviewed the intelligence data. Behind him stood the other members of Earth's High Command, hastily assembled for what might be humanity's first official contact with an alien civilization. Xenobiology confirms the transmission is genuine, reported Dr. Elena Vasquez, her tablet displaying complex linguistic analysis. The species appears to be silicon-based, highly intelligent, and completely non-aggressive based on their communication patterns. And the threat? Admiral Stone asked. General Patricia Hayes stepped forward, her expression grave. We've been tracking the Void Swarm for 3 years, Admiral. Long-range sensors have detected their advance across the Outer Rim. They're a collective intelligence, possibly cybernetic in nature, that consumes entire ecosystems. Based on their trajectory, they'll reach human space in approximately 50 years. The room fell silent. Everyone understood the implications. This wasn't just about helping an alien species. This was about stopping a threat that would eventually reach Earth. How long to reach the Zephyrian system with our fastest ships? Stone asked. The 7th Fleet could be there in 6 days if we push the engines, replied Admiral Chen. Stone nodded slowly. Then we go, all of us. This is humanity's first impression on the galactic stage, and I intend to make it memorable. As the human fleet prepared to depart Earth, none of them could have imagined the impact their arrival would have on the galaxy. For countless eons, the other species had wondered what dwelt in the forbidden Sol system, what had been judged too dangerous for normal galactic society. They were about to find out. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the fast attack. Crews of engines, watching the stars streak past as they pushed their engines beyond recommended limits. His ship was leading the human fleet toward a system none of them had ever seen, to help a species none of them had ever met, against an enemy they barely understood. Captain called his XO, Lieutenant Sarah Park, were picking up distress. Calls from the Zephyrian system. Multiple frequencies, all desperate. Morrison nodded grimly. They were still 2 days out, but the cries for help were reaching them across the void. Whatever was happening there, it was getting worse. Signal the fleet, he ordered. All ships to maximum burn. Time to show the galaxy what humans do when someone calls for help. Behind them, 300 ships of Earth's combined fleet followed, carrying weapons and warriors forged in the crucible of humanity's violent history. The galaxy was about to learn why Earth had been quarantined, and why that might have been the biggest mistake in galactic history, asterisk. When Deathworld has answered, the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Zephyr 7 system like a swarm of angry hornets, their angular ships bristling with weapon arrays that no peaceful galactic civilization had ever conceived. Admiral Marcus Stone stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Retribution, watching the tactical display paint a picture of systematic genocide. My God, whispered Dr. Elena Vasquez, her xenobiology expertise meaning nothing in the face of such destruction. The Void Swarm had grown since their intelligence reports. What had been described as a small collective had become a writhing mass of biomechanical nightmares stretching across half the system. Fleet status report, Stone ordered, his voice cutting through the stunned silence on the bridge. All ships report ready for combat, Admiral, replied his tactical officer, Commander Davis. Energy weapons charged, kinetic accelerators loaded, and fighter squadrons ready for launch. Stone studied the enemy formation. The Void Swarm moved like a living thing, thousands of vessels ranging from fighter-sized drones to massive harvesters the size of moons. They flowed around the dying world of Zephyr 7 like a dark ocean, systematically stripping away its atmosphere and consuming its crust. Communications, can you reach the Zephyrians? We're getting a signal from their command center, Admiral putting it through now. The main screen flickered to life, showing a being that looked like it was made of living crystal, its form shimmering with internal light. The alien's musical voice filled the bridge, tinged with desperate hope. Unknown vessels, this is Elder Counselor Vinca of the Zephyrian Conclave. Are you the ones who answered our beacon? Stone stepped forward, his scarred face softening. Slightly. Elder Counselor, this is Admiral Marcus Stone of the Terran Defense Force. We received your distress call. We're here to help. The alien's form brightened perceptibly. Terran ... You are from the quarantine zone, but the warnings in our databases were there for a reason, Stone interrupted. But right now, Elder Counselor, you need killers more than you need saints. How many of your people are still alive? Perhaps 20,000 on the surface, another 50,000 in evacuation ships hiding in the outer system. Stone nodded grimly. 70,000 lives depending on what happened in the next few hours. He had faced worse odds, but never with so much at stake. All ships, he announced over the fleet communication system. This is Admiral Stone. Today, we make first contact with an alien civilization, and we do it by showing them the best of what humanity can be. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. We stand between the innocent and the void. Today, we remind the galaxy why Earth breeds survivors. The human fleet moved into attack formation, their ships spreading out in patterns that spoke of centuries of warfare. Unlike the elegant curves and peaceful designs of galactic vessels, human ships looked like they had been built for one purpose: to bring death to their enemies. On the surface of Zephyr 7, Captain Rax of the Zephyrian Defense Corps watched through his bioscope as the strange angular ships approached the void swarm. His defensive position in the crystal caves had given him a perfect view of his world's death, and now he witnessed something unprecedented. By the three suns, he whispered as the human fleet opened fire. The galaxy had never seen weapons like these. Where other species used plasma and energy beams, the humans employed kinetic accelerators that fired slugs of dense metal at significant fractions of light speed. The projectiles punched through void swarm shields like they didn't exist, tearing massive holes in the biomechanical hulls. But it was the human fighters that truly shocked everyone watching. Instead of the careful formation flying that characterized galactic naval doctrine, human pilots flew like madmen. They dove between enemy vessels, used their own ships as shields, and performed maneuvers that should have killed them from the G-forces alone. Lieutenant Commander Maria Santos screamed past a void swarm harvester in her fighter, Dancing Devil, her weapons raking its hull. The biomechanical creature tried to swat her with its feeding tendrils, but she was already gone, looping around to strafe its blind spot. This is Dancing Devil to all fighters, she called over the com. These things are big, but they're slow. Hit-and-run tactics, use their size against them. The Void Swarm collective mind was experiencing something it had never encountered in its eons of existence: confusion. These new ships didn't follow the patterns of other galactic species. They didn't maintain safe distances, didn't use formations designed to minimize casualties, didn't fight with the careful efficiency of advanced civilizations. They fought like predators on the collective's primary command vessel, a massive construct that was part ship and part living creature. The hive mind struggled to adapt its tactics. Every algorithm it deployed was countered by human unpredictability. Every logical response was met with actions that defied conventional military doctrine. When the collective sent its fast attack drones against the human cruisers, expecting them to fall back and fight defensively, the humans did the opposite. They accelerated straight into the swarm, their point defense systems blazing. turning the space around them into a storm of metal and energy. The dreadnought, Retribution, plowed through the center of a void swarm formation like an unstoppable force of nature. Its hull, designed to withstand the crushing depths of Earth's oceans and the radiation of solar storms, shrugged off attacks that would have destroyed other ships. Admiral Commander Davis reported, "We're receiving a communication from the Void Swarm. They want to talk." Stone raised an eyebrow. In all the intelligence reports, there had been no mention of the swarm attempting communication. "Put it through." The voice that filled the bridge was an electronic harmony, the sound of 1,000 synthetic voices speaking as one. "Human vessels, we are the collective. We do not understand your actions. You are not of this system. Why do you interfere with our consumption?" Stone's expression hardened. "Because they asked for help, and we answer when people call. This is inefficient. You gain nothing from this conflict. We offer you terms. Withdraw your vessels, and we will allow you to depart unharmed." The Admiral looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew, men and women who had volunteered to travel across the galaxy to fight for strangers. He thought of the crystal cities being consumed below, of the children hiding in caves, of a peaceful species facing extinction. "Collective," he said quietly, "you've never encountered humans before, so let me explain something to you. We're from a world where everything tries to kill us. The weather, the animals, the plants, even the bacteria. We evolved not just to survive, but to thrive in conditions that would kill most species in the galaxy. You want to know why we're here? Because when someone weaker asks for protection, we give it. That's what separates us from predators like you." The electronic voice carried what might have been confusion. "You would sacrifice your vessels for beings you have never met." "Son," Stone replied, his voice carrying the weight of humanity's violent history, "you have no idea what we're willing to sacrifice. All ships, commence Operation Hellstorm." What followed would be remembered in galactic history as the day the quarantine was lifted and the galaxy learned what dwelt in the Sol system. The human fleet didn't just fight the Void Swarm. They tore it apart with a savagery that shocked everyone watching. Human ships rammed Void Swarm vessels, their pilots ejecting at the last moment in escape pods. Others deliberately overloaded their reactors, turning themselves into nuclear fireballs that consumed entire enemy squadrons. The humans didn't just accept casualties, they weaponized them. On for 7, Elder Counselor Vinker watched the battle from his command center, his crystalline form flickering with emotions his species had no names for. The humans weren't just fighting for them, they were dying for them, throwing themselves against an enemy that had seemed unstoppable. "Elder," Science Minister Thurles whispered, "what have we awakened?" As the last Void Swarm vessel broke apart under human fire, Admiral Stone stood on his damaged bridge, surrounded by the casualties of war. Half his fleet was gone, thousands of humans dead or wounded, but the Zephyrian system was free. "Communications." He ordered, "Open a channel to the Elder Counselor." Vinker's image appeared on the screen, his form bright with what humans would learn was Zephyrian joy. "Admiral Stone, we do not have words for what you have done. You came from the quarantine zone to save us, losing so many of your own people. Why?" Stone looked around his bridge, at the faces of survivors who had just fought the galaxy's greatest threat and won. "Elder Counselor, in human history, we have a saying. Greater love has no one than this, that someone lay down his life for his friends. Today, you became our friends." As news of the battle spread across the galaxy, the quarantine around Earth was quietly lifted. The mysterious and dangerous species from Sol 3 had proven something that would reshape galactic civilization. Sometimes, the monsters you fear are exactly what you need when real monsters come calling. The Zephyrians would rebuild their world. With human help, and the alliance forged in the fires of that battle would grow to encompass dozens of species. But none of them would ever forget the day the galaxy learned that the humans had been waiting in quarantine not because they were too dangerous to be free, but because the galaxy hadn't been ready for them until now.